Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you guys doing? I'm here in Hamburg, the second most populated city in Germany and a state in its own right here in Germany. Now, you might have seen the debate where me and Unholy Shmoli were talking on Piers Morgan's show.
Hello people, this is Socrates Son. In today's video, we will try to answer the question: how intellectually competent is Mohammed Hijab and whether Muslims should count on him to deliver truth and guidance. Sorry guys, sorry. Okay, let's go.
And we actually brought up the issue of Winston Churchill and the bombing of Dresden and Hamburg. Now this city was bombed in World War II by the RAF under the command of Winston Churchill. And the instruction was, or the idea was, to try and create a demoralizing effect by killing the civilian population.
No, in fact, that is not true. You simply don't have the comprehension ability of a 10-year-old to understand what you read.
Now, this is my position, but you have to give me 10 seconds at least to answer, right? Legally, I think you shouldn't call Hamas a terrorist organization if you're not calling IDF a terrorist organization. That's my position.
But you do both.
Mohammed Hijab, the same way he won't condemn Hamas unless he condemns Israel, now apparently he won't condemn Bin Laden unless he also condemns Churchill.
On Winston Churchill's command to bomb of Dresden, the source below shows that Churchill targeted civilians in order to demoralize the Axis, a horrendous war crime which is part of the reason the Geneva Conventions were put in place. Interestingly, Bin Laden uses similar reasoning for targeting civilians in his famous fatwas.
He even goes further than this. He won't condemn the Nazis unless he condemns the Allies.
So, Christian Europe fought a defensive war against the Nazis. It isn't obvious that that was wrong.
I don't think that was. I wouldn't say that's defensive. I wouldn't say that's defensive.
Okay, fine, but I understand the concept of defensive war.
Well, when America got involved in World War II, it was not under immediate threat by Germany, and they colonized it.
You say Churchill targeted civilians in order to demoralize the Axis. That is wrong. And the evidence you give is the Dresden bombing as portrayed in German accounts. The true reasons are much more complicated and they have to do with very serious military objectives. Then you say that was part of the reason the Geneva Conventions were put in place. No, in fact, the fourth Geneva Convention was put in place after World War II because of Nazis, not because of Churchill. Even if you say it's part of the reason, it sounds like Churchill is responsible for the Geneva Convention. Are you serious?
And this very city saw the destruction of about 40,000 civilians in World War II. And as Keith Lau states, and this is something which I'm going to I'll put a link in the description box for more information. Actually, it's a BBC link that you can look at for your own convenience. That this is not to be compared with what happened in Coventry in London in World War II, but in fact this is to be compared with what happened in Nagasaki. As you may know, the Americans...
Mohammed, next time you defeat the Nazis without compromising civilians. Wait, in fact, you already gave away how this could have been done. And if we knew that in the 40s, we would have spared the lives of many civilians. Let's see.
Stop.
Hamas has 240 hostages they took, including babies,
Sure.
young kids,
Sure.
grandmothers who survived the Holocaust.
Yeah.
I mean, an unspeakable further criminal
Yeah.
act. We can agree, right?
Of course.
Why should Israel agree to any ceasefire so long as those hostages are still being kept hostage?
Look, my position is very clear. They should fight man to man on the
They
ground.
are.
On the ground.
Well, they are.
That fighting.
That's exactly what they're doing.
That fighting, no one can. This is.
Mohammed, that's exactly what they're doing.
I know.
Man to man, they took hostages.
Excuse me.
They took babies as hostages.
He's asked me the question.
Let him
They
answer
took
the question.
infants as hostages.
Let him answer the question.
You're getting excited here.
Why, if you're Israel, would you ever agree to a ceasefire if those hostages aren't released?
I'm telling you what my position is. My position is man-to-man combat.
Which is what they're doing now.
No, that part of it is understandable.
So, Mohammed Hijab's solution to defeat the Nazis, we can assume, is this one. Yes? Man-to-man combat. This guy thinks like he's a 10-year-old. Okay? So he thinks the fair is to man up and have a fist fight. This is your solution. A fist fight.
Do you understand?
That's what they're doing.
No problem. But what I think is not understandable, what is not acceptable, because you said, what's a proportionate response? That's the question you keep asking everybody. My answer to you is a proportionate response is one where in which the ratios are not 100 to 1.
That's your invention.
Excuse me, please.
Dropped a bomb in Hiroshima and in Nagasaki, and it was one of the most detrimental things that's ever happened in all of world's history in terms of killing of civilian people.
The atomic bombs saved people, by the way, Mohammed Hijab. But you cannot even understand the simplest stuff. How you will understand this? Anyway, okay, go on.
And leaving damage behind. The same thing happened here. And of course, we don't speak about that as much as we should do, because the events of the Holocaust here in this country eclipsed all other catastrophes of a civilian nature that happened in Europe. But the point to be noted here is the following, that the reason why many Western politicians felt it okay, or still do feel it okay, to either aid or to actually perpetrate these kinds of things, where the targeting of civilians is something which is an option, is because of a crass utilitarian judgment. It is a crass utilitarian judgment. Utilitarianism is an ideology which postulates that it's the greatest good for the greatest number of people. So you'll find some kind of an argument, the like of which would postulate the following. They would say, if we didn't do this, then we wouldn't win the war. So killing the civilians is a necessary thing to do.
If the Allies haven't won the Nazis, Islam wouldn't have existed now. Under Nazis, Islam would have been extinct by no doubt. Mosques, okay, even if you said the word Quran, you would have been executed. Yet alone, having mosques, Islamic centers, making dawah. Okay. So, given that, and given that the only moral rule in Islam is preserve and promote Islam, and given that engaging the Nazis with a save German civilians approach would have cost the war, simply, then you also must agree the death of German civilians was an unfortunate, necessary prerequisite for winning this war.
Now, this is very interesting because the social liberal critique of Islam and its peoples has usually been that Islam inspires a kind of terrorism or killing of civilians for political gain. But this, if not terrorism, according to that definition, what would it be if not killing the civilians in Hamburg, 40,000 of them in a city so developed as this? What would it be? So the point here,
guys, pay attention, because that is the true definition of terrorism. Not even the dictionary gives you that precise definition that I give. Terrorism is the indiscriminate attack, most often on civilians, by a non-state actor with the core or main purpose of advancing a political agenda using terror as the primary tool. So, according to this definition, let's see in how many ways the Allies in World War II were not terrorists. Firstly, they were a state actor. Secondly, they went to war for liberty, not for a political agenda. Thirdly, their main target was not civilians. Civilians were collateral damage. Fourth, their primary tool was not terror. terror was a byproduct of their military.
Point is that those, say for example, Islamists, Muslims, whatever you guys want to call it, because of course these are all social constructs and terms, these individuals that do that actually employ a very similar kind of consequentialist reasoning. If you read the fatwas of Osama bin Laden, he says they're killing our civilians, therefore we have to kill their civilians. So it's a kind of utilitarian or consequentialist reasoning.
Bin Laden, just like you, used a secular type of justification for his purely religious motivated act on 9/11 to pretend some moral justification and veil his true objective, which was the Muslim Brotherhood agenda, namely attack the West, force the West to respond, in that way awake and unite the Muslim Ummah against the westernization of the Muslim world. In other words, replace the Western world order with the Islamic world order, or advance the cause of Allah in this world. You use similar language, by the way, when you are surrounded by Muslims, or when you talk to Muslim audience, and not have to pretend like you do now when you talk for Western audience.
I've been reading myself some of the eschatological ahadith, the hadith of the end times. And I just feel as if we're living those times. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us. He told us in the beginning the situation would be that you have a khilafah, that you have a caliphate, and that after that there will be an authoritarian or monarchical rule. And then after that there will be a kind of authoritarian rule. And then after that, which is where we are now, there will be khilafah ala minhaj an-nubuwah.
Ah, you mean a two-state solution, right? And Bin Laden did what he did because of grievances, right? That is the real reason, right? We are the robots.
It's been promised to us by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Let me guess that you will fight against grievances like Bin Laden. That is what you will have been promised by the Prophet Muhammad. That's it. But now you are not talking to a Western audience, so you can reveal yourself. Like Bin Laden, when he was talking to Western audience, it was all about Palestine grievances, Iraq, why USA had forces near the holy places. In the Muslim audience, though, the real reasons revealed, which was al-Zawahiri's, his mentor, reason, the Muslim Brotherhood agenda.
By Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, that the victory will come. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
These individuals that do that actually employ a very similar kind of consequentialist reasoning. If you read the fatwas of Osama bin Laden, he says they're killing our civilians, therefore we have to kill their civilians. So it's a kind of utilitarian or consequentialist reasoning. So there's more by way of consequentialist reasoning that unites military dictators and political actors who decide to target civilians than there is by way of religion.
Really? What if I show now a clip where you yourself passionately and aggressively deny consequentialism as the reason behind your moral reasoning as a Muslim? What then? Okay, let's see.
So let me give you a ratio.
Yeah.
How many people did the Nazis kill?
I don't know.
You don't know.
We know they killed 6 million.
They killed 12 million people.
I don't know. We don't know.
Including 6 million Jews.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So
12 million
how many died in Dresden? How many civilians died in Germany? Do you know?
I don't know exactly.
Right. So you don't actually know what you're talking about.
I do know what I'm talking about because
You
I know in
called
Dresden and Hamburg.
You said it's about you. Unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, go ahead.
Unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, go
you
ahead.
said it's to do with the
ratios.
The ratios.
Yes.
But you don't know the ratios. When
No, I know for a fact.
You call Winston Churchill.
What are the numbers?
Mohammed Hijab pretends to care about ratios, yet on other debates makes arguments against consequentialism.
Consequentialism is an ethical theory that judges whether or not something is right by what its consequences are.
You mentioned something quite interesting. You said, our ordinary requirements for moral philosophy. You mentioned as well, like you've got deontological ethics, you've got consequentialism or teleological ethics, and then you've got virtue ethics. My question is, why should it be that white men dictate to us what morality is? Have we had enough of this in this country? Instead, our requirements for morality, as if we've all subscribed to it. We have a completely different understanding and a completely different ontology. Why have you assumed that the white man is right? So my question is, as an atheist, you have the audacity to say our requirements of moral philosophy, as if the white man's moral philosophy is all of our moral philosophies, and or any of the consequentialist ethics. You said our moral philosophy, you've included me in your morality. I'm asking you to prove your morality before you say our morality. I don't subscribe to your morality. Answer me, why is the veil of ignorance of Jordan rules or the consequentialist moralities of any of the liberal thinkers absolutely true? What creedal disproving implications does that have? As a philosopher, where is your objective morality? Where is your objective reasoning? Where are the arguments? Where is the empiricism? Where is the calculations? Where is the proof? Where is the evidence? That's why I'm asking. Don't assume that you're going to come here and tell us our requirements for our moral requirements. That's your moral requirements. You have a religion, I have a different religion. Prove to me that your religion is true. That's what I'm saying. Why is consequentialism true?
Morality based on casualty ratios is clear-cut consequentialism. The morality you supposedly do not subscribe to. So, let's note first of all that Mohammed Hijab now accuses the Allies in World War II for killing civilians because it's immoral according to him under any context, yet on Piers Morgan debate he said that morality is dependent on ratios. So who is right then? You now or you in the debate? Tell us, please.
But this is something which people do not comprehend or understand. And it's high time that we change the narratives on these issues. But knowing the history of what happened in World War II between European countries and between the Europeans and the rest of the world will give us a stronger idea of what to expect from Western politicians. What we expect from Western politicians is that they will perpetrate these crimes, and they will do so because they are employing a kind of utilitarian judgment to do with the politics of that particular nation.
Okay, are you done, you idiot? You imbecile. Okay, so if you are done now, let's see the levels of your stupidity. Shall we? That you pretend to understand history and advise people about stuff. Guys, note the impeccable stupidity of Mohammed Hijab. This guy is an imbecile. Simply cannot read. Remember a few days ago he humiliated himself on Piers Morgan, misreading a Guardian news article and spending half of the debate repeating this error.
Mohammed Hijab's core argument on Piers Morgan last night was so dumb.
We know that 10,000 civilians have died. Of them, according to the IDF, as reported by The Guardian, 60, dozens, they say, about 60 Hamas died, which we're being liberal by saying 100 to 1 figures. For every one Hamas, you have to kill 100 civilians. That's effectively what we're saying. If the trajectory continues as it is, then you have to kill 3 million Palestinian civilians in order to kill 30,000 Hamas fighters.
Mohammed, you need to learn to read. The article didn't say fighters. It said dozens of Hamas commanders. The IDF were talking about the military leaders that they'd taken out.
Israel has killed over 60 senior and mid-level Hamas leaders since the October 7th attack. Israel Defense Military, IDF, spokesperson Jonathan Conricus has said.
When in reality the IDF said 60 Hamas leaders, not fighters. Okay guys, embarrassing mistake, right? Okay, guess what? This idiot okay, there is no better way to put that, did the same mistake again. He says, after all this fighting, the official IDF website states only 200 Hamas have been killed. So now it's 200. Since the beginning of the hostilities, the Navy has operated in the southern naval arena in defense. Okay, blah, blah, blah. The forces have so far eliminated about 200 terrorists at sea and on land, including many terrorists from the Hamas Naval Commando. It says the Navy, not IDF in general, you idiot. You did the same mistake again. So you tried to make up for your previous mistake. And you make the same mistake again.